Touch your throat right now. Feel the gentle pulse there, the skin moving with each breath. Air is moving in and out of your lungs at this exact moment, about 15 times per minute, without you deciding to do it. Your body just does it. It has done it every minute of your life. Except for the 9 months before your life officially began, when you were suspended in fluid, completely submerged, and your lungs were full of liquid. And yet you didn't drown. Most people assume the answer is simple. Babies in the womb don't breathe. They just float there, passive, waiting to be born. But that's not quite right. And the real answer is far stranger than you'd expect. Because your lungs were actually practicing the entire time. And the system keeping you alive in that fluid was one of the most elegant biological mechanisms your body will ever run. A mechanism so precise that even modern medicine has spent decades trying to replicate it. Let's start with the fluid itself. Because that fluid is the reason any of this was possible. It's called amniotic fluid, and it is not simply water. It is a living, dynamic substance. In the earliest weeks after conception, it is produced almost entirely from your mother's body, a filtration of her blood plasma seeping through the thin membrane surrounding you. But by the second trimester, something remarkable shifts. You begin producing it yourself. Your kidneys start functioning around week 9. By week 20, roughly 80% of the amniotic fluid surrounding you is your own urine. You have been swimming in your own processed waste for months. This is not a design flaw. It is a feature. Researchers at the University of Queensland established in 2007 that this self-generated fluid contains growth factors critical for lung and gut development. The amniotic fluid is not just a cushion. It is a medium your body manufactures to teach itself how to be a body. Your ancestors were aquatic long before they were terrestrial. The fluid surrounding you in the womb is, in a very real sense, a replica of the ancient ocean your pre-vertebrate ancestors swam in roughly 375 million years ago. Neil Shubin, a paleontologist at the University of Chicago, described this connection in 2008 when mapping how fish fins became human limbs. The transition from water to land required a completely new breathing system. Your lungs are that system. But in the womb, they had to be temporarily deactivated, kept full of fluid rather than air, while they grew complex enough to handle the switch. And here's what's fascinating. Your lungs weren't just full of fluid. They were actively moving it. As early as week 10, your diaphragm begins making rhythmic contractions, a slow, deliberate pump. Not breathing, practicing breathing, pulling amniotic fluid in and pushing it out again. These practice contractions happen 30 to 70 times per minute during active periods in the womb. By week 34, a full 6 weeks before a typical birth, your lungs have already rehearsed the mechanics of respiration thousands upon thousands of times. They are not waiting to be born to start working. They have been working all along. But that's only half the story. In 1999, physiologist Richard Harding at Monash University in Melbourne published a landmark study tracking what happens when fetal breathing movements are suppressed in animal models. The results were unambiguous. Lungs that couldn't practice their movements failed to develop properly. They stayed small, stiff, underprepared. The act of rehearsal was not optional. It was required for the organ itself to form. Your lungs did not breathe practice fluid because they were ready. They breathed practice fluid in order to become ready. The movement created the capacity. And honestly, what comes next is even stranger. Because practicing breathing isn't what kept you from drowning. It's what built the equipment. The actual survival mechanism is something else entirely. And it involves a switch so dramatic, so perfectly timed, that it has to be one of the most extraordinary events in all of biology. In 2014, a team of researchers at University College London, led by Dr. Marianne Johnson, began studying a small cluster of nerve cells in the fetal brainstem, cells that normally trigger breathing. During fetal life, these cells are actively suppressed. The brain knows the lungs are in fluid. It knows breathing, in the full oxygen exchange sense, is impossible. So it holds them back. Not through passivity, but through active chemical inhibition. A molecule called adenosine floods the fetal brain in high concentrations throughout pregnancy, acting as a brake on the respiratory drive. You weren't failing to breathe. You were being prevented from breathing by your own brain, on purpose, which raises an uncomfortable question. If your brain was actively suppressing breathing in the womb, what happens the moment you exit? That brake has to release instantaneously, or you die. And it does release, but not through some gentle fading. The transition is catastrophic and precise. When you pass through the birth canal, the pressure on your chest compresses your lungs momentarily. Then as you emerge, that pressure releases, and the first elastic recoil of your chest wall pulls in air. Simultaneously, the cold of the outside world hits your skin, a sensory shock that sends a signal cascading through your nervous system. And the adenosine brake releases. All at once. The suppression ends. The neurons fire. And you breathe. That first cry is not an expression of confusion or distress. It is your respiratory system coming online for the first time, the most violent software update your brain will ever run. But here's what nobody talks about. There is a second system running in parallel the entire time you are in the womb, and it is even older than the lungs. Your placenta. The placenta is not simply a feeding tube. In 2019, Dr. Anna Penn at George Washington University School of Medicine published research identifying the placenta as an active endocrine organ, a gland producing hormones that directly regulate fetal brain development. The placenta is, in a real sense, a temporary external organ that your mother's body and your body built together. Half its cells carry your DNA. Half carry hers. It is the only organ in the human body that is genetically two people at once. And here is where the paradox lives. The placenta keeps you alive by connecting you completely to another person. But the moment you are born, it is discarded. The organ that defined the first chapter of your existence is delivered, examined briefly, and disposed of. In most hospitals, it goes into a biohazard bin. Some cultures bury it. Some eat it. In every case, the most intimate object that ever existed, a biological bridge between two separate humans, lasts approximately 9 months and then vanishes. Here is the detail that will not leave you. The amniotic fluid surrounding a full-term baby is replaced entirely every 3 hours. Not gradually, completely. Your body was continuously swallowing it, absorbing it through gut tissue, filtering it through your kidneys, and expelling it again as new fluid. In the final weeks of pregnancy, a baby swallows roughly 1 liter of amniotic fluid per day. 1 liter. The fluid being cycled through your body before you were born was more than the fluid most adults consciously drink in an entire day. You were a miniature water treatment system, sealed inside another person, running at full capacity, weeks before you had a name. Right now, when you take a breath, you are completing something that started before you were born. The rhythm your diaphragm is running, the slight downward pull, the expansion of your ribs, the passive release of the exhale, was installed in you between weeks 10 and 34, rehearsed in fluid, perfected in the dark. The slight anxiety you feel in closed, humid spaces may be an echo of something. The immediate calm that comes from submerging in warm water might be a memory your body carries, even when your mind does not. Your body knows water in a way that precedes all language. It learned it first. Your nervous system still carries the blueprint of that original environment. When you hold your breath underwater, your heart rate automatically slows, a reflex called the mammalian dive response, activated without thought. It is not learned. It was never taught to you. It was simply preserved. From the time before you needed air. From the 9 months when your body solved the problem of water by becoming one with it. The fluid is gone. The placenta is gone. The brake that held your lungs still is gone. But the architecture of that time, the diaphragm's rhythm, the dive reflex, the deep cellular knowledge of what it means to be surrounded and sustained, that is still running. Quietly. Beneath everything you think you are. You didn't learn to survive. You arrived already knowing how.